There you go. Can you guys hear me? Sorry about that. I always go back and forth between my computers, so sometimes you guys can hear me, sometimes you guys can't. But I think you guys should be able to hear me at this point. Um, Man, I'm excited to talk about this. I've been wanting to talk a little bit about. Thank you, by the way, for confirming. I've been wanting to talk a little bit about our offensive line and defensive line, and really get into it in a deep, thorough review, right? Because the Raiders have so many different players. We have so many different offensive linemen, defensive linemen, and although for us, we can kind of determine that, hey, these are our starters, and this is probably who's going to be the backup guys. Every year it happens, right? It doesn't always necessarily pan out the way we kind of think it's going to pan out, right? So yeah, I want to discuss this, and I want to get into it very, very thoroughly. With that being said, let's just jump right into this, man. And again, if you guys have questions, leave them in the comments. I really want to get into the offensive and defensive line. At the same time, I will answer all super chats, and even if there's not super chats, if I see some good questions, I'll definitely get those on. And always remember, subscribe and hit the notification bell, as that will allow you guys to kind of see. Rod Gas actually just put this out there. So 86 players showed up today, which is incredible. This whole entire process it's not like it's something that's mandatory. People can show up, and the Raiders are showing up. And I love the fact that the Raiders are showing up, because you don't have to show up. And in the past, I feel like oftentimes people didn't really show up to OTAs and mini camp and stuff like that. But it kind of seems like right now the players are willing to show up. And I guess I'll just hit on it really quickly. I kind of talked about this a little bit in one of my last videos. Juwan James getting hurt has really impacted the way players feel about working out away from the team, right? Juwan James got hurt, and he should have made $15 million. If he got hurt at the facility, he would have been guaranteed $15 million. But because he was working out outside of the facility, they took his money away. And the thing is players had decided they were going to opt out. And I'm sure coaches and GMs and owners did not want players not to show up to OTAs. You're already limited in the amount of time. You're already limited in how much time you get with your players. And the fact that these guys didn't want to practice and show up, and again, OTAs is not mandatory, right? It's optional. But because of the fact that these players had already decided that they were not going to show up to OTAs, most teams had opted out. But because of the fact that players are opting out, I feel like the owners, the coaches, the GMs kind of wanted to use Juwan James as an example that, hey, if you want to work out outside of the facilities, great. But if you get hurt, we're not going to pay you. And I feel like Juwan James just ended up being that one guy, right? He just ended up being that one guy who didn't show up or didn't want to practice at the facilities. I talked to Colton Miller about this. Colton Miller talked about how, and I don't think this was during the actual video. This was a separate outside of the video. I talked to Colton Miller about the fact that, are you working out in Vegas? Are you in the Sacramento area, which is where his family lives? And he told me that he's working out in Vegas. He said that, and this was at that time, I don't know how it is today. He said that he would have to go in and do a COVID test every single day. And he says that even if you skipped doing a COVID test, even if you skipped potentially going in, you would have to wait a full 2 weeks before you can come back into the building, which is crazy. But, Colton understood, and a lot of these players understand. And I feel like that's why at this point, players work out regardless. Like Jonathan Abrams not going to go and just hang out and not work out. And then when the season comes along, at that point, he's going to start working out. These guys prep and work out daily, and that's to get ready for the NFL season. So if these guys have to work out anyways, you might as well work out in the facilities in case of an injury, right? Unfortunately, injuries do happen. If an injury does happen, at least you're going to get paid. And, I definitely understand it from the point of view of these players. Rod, I do appreciate the comment. We got our first super chat of the day. And right after this super chat, we're going to jump right into the offensive line And we're going to talk about the depth. We're going to talk about every single player, what they're good at, what they're not good at. And I'll give you guys, a slight prediction of what I think, is going to end up being. Gruden's Grinder left a $20 super chat. He said, "You're loved, valued, and appreciated by Raider Nation. Keep it up." I really appreciate them, and I really appreciate the kind words. It's been very difficult this week getting content out. I've been feeling super stressed out between my actual job and the YouTube business here, trying to, keep putting the content out, keep putting out things you guys would actually like. I make videos, I made film studies, I think 2 last week. None of those made any income for myself, right? So I put in hours worth of work, and both of those videos ended up getting demonetized. So it's really appreciated that you left the comment you left, because I read comments like this even during my normal videos, and these are the type of comments that get me wanting to continue making content, right? I'm not the only one that goes through this. I know all the other content creators hit this wall where like you don't want to push out content. But with that being said, I appreciate it. Gruden's Grinders, $20 super chat. Huge shout out to you. Joel, huge shout out to you. You said, "Love you, bro." I love and appreciate all of you guys, man. I really do, because without you guys, I really would not be making content. Also, just so you guys know, I will be going live tomorrow on Raid the Tape's YouTube channel. So if you guys aren't subscribed to Raid the Tape, go subscribe to him. He'll have myself, Honcho, and I believe Graphic all on at the same time. Again, I really appreciate every single one of you guys. A shout out to you, Todd Clements. But with that being stated, man, let's jump right into the offensive line, and let's discuss and let's get thoroughly into the offensive line talk. Now, most people would agree that left tackle to right tackle is pretty much set in stone. Minus the right guard spot, there is, some wiggle room, right? That some people would say that is potentially. But just to break it down, left tackle, you have Colton Miller. He's our guy, right? He's the one guy that we drafted recently, and he's doing well, right? And outside of the left tackle, Colton Miller, we have Richie Incognito. And I want to give you guys a scenario, but I guess I'll just go through it first. Left guard will be Richie Incognito. Center will be Andre James. Right guard, Denzel Good. Right tackle, Alex Leatherwood, of course, first-round pick. What are the chances that Richie Incognito ends up playing right guard and Denzel Good plays left guard? And I say that because last year, Denzel Good, even though he kind of went all over the place, he primarily played left guard last year, right? And I know Denzel Good could move from left to right, but Richie can also move left to right as well, right? At the same time, I bring that up because wouldn't you want your nastiest offensive lineman in Richie Incognito lined up right next to Alex Leatherwood, who is a rookie, right? Whoever lines up next to Leatherwood, that's going to be the guy that's going to teach Leatherwood. They're going to put values into Leatherwood today that are going to last a lifetime for Alex Leatherwood. Would you guys want Alex Leatherwood and Richie Incognito to line up on the right side of the line? I would not mind it, honestly. And the thing is Denzel Good could play left guard, and he did it last year. At the same time, if you guys really think about it, what are the chances that those two guys don't both start? What are the chances that John Simpson ends up starting? I know we're all for Denzel Good. We're all for Richie Incognito being the two guys that start. But Raiders Football Talk, who I had live on Sunday, he made a great point, man. And we don't have that one swing guy, right? Chances are someone's going to get hurt on the offensive line. So if someone gets hurt, who's going to come in and play, right? Whether it's right tackle, maybe even left tackle, right? Denzel Good, I feel like, could pretty much play every single position. And I wouldn't be surprised if the guy can play center. Like, flat out, if you gave him like 4 weeks to practice, he'll be our center, man. Denzel Goods, I think, maybe our most versatile. He might be the most important offensive lineman after Colton Miller, right? Like, that is the type of player he is. He can play left guard, right tackle, and I'm sure he can play left tackle as well if needed. But do you guys think there's a possibility the Raiders just keep Denzel Good as a backup just in case the right tackle gets hurt, just in case the left guard gets hurt or the right guard gets hurt? John Simpson is also going to want to start, right? Like, let's not forget that the NFL is a very competitive league. Like, yeah, these guys are going to be friends at the end of the day, but they want to all start, and they all want to make that push to start, especially someone like John Simpson. Right now, John Simpson is the underdog people don't expect him to start. Denzel Good, for the most part, I would say not necessarily Richie Incognito, because Richie Incognito is the vet. He's going to start. He's like in his final season, probably ever of his career. Is there a possibility that Denzel Good ends up not being the starter, right? Like, I think there is some value in him to being a swing guy, but ultimately I do think he'll end up starting. And if he does start, do you guys think it makes sense to put Denzel Good with Colton Miller on the left side and Richie Incognito on the right side with Alex Leatherwood? I want to let you know what you guys think. Let me know in the chat right now. If you guys are watching this not live, let me know in the comments below. It's going to be very, very interesting. And at the same time, you have to always keep in mind, Richie Incognito has not been healthy. Like, he's been with the Raiders for 2 seasons now, and he was not healthy in both of those seasons. Like, he missed time. Last year, obviously, he missed pretty much the whole entire season. I think week 2 was the game that he ended up getting hurt. But he pretty much missed all of last year, and Good pretty much started for him all of last year, and John Simpson kind of rotated in and out. But it'll be very, very, very interesting. Joey said DG Denzel Good is going to start at right tackle, which would be interesting. But you also said no right guard. It'll be interesting because I do think that Alex Leatherwood does have the right tackle spot locked up. But at the same time, I know there are people that are in the comments saying that John Simpson sucks. And Incognito is always hurt, which that's very interesting, right? If that's the case, could you guys imagine if both John Simpson and Richie Incognito, like Incognito gets hurt and Simpson struggles and he is a bust, right? And we realize it this season. Could you imagine how terrible that would be for our team? Like, that would put us in a really rough spot. Now, let's jump into the depth, right? Left tackle to right tackle is pretty much set in stone. I'm going to, for the sake of this video, just say it's Colton Miller, Richie Incognito, Andre James at center, Denzel Good at right guard, and Alex Leatherwood at right tackle. That pretty much leaves the backup positions for every single one of those spots. Now, I'm pretty confident Brandon Parker will be on the roster. I know Parker is not loved by a lot of people, especially since he was a 3rd-round pick in 2018. But he's gotten better every year, right? Last year, especially, he looked so much better, and he looked promising at the beginning of the season. His play did kind of fall off towards the end of the season. But he did look better at times, right? And I kind of feel like Brandon Parker, being that swing tackle, right, left tackle, right tackle, I kind of feel like he will be on this roster for sure. Now, I really want to see how much better he's gotten in this upcoming year. We get preseason, man. We get only 3 games, but we get it. And I'm pumped up to kind of watch it. You know, I might end up going to that San Francisco 49ers game because it is like 40 minutes from my house. And I saw tickets are pretty cheap. It's like $40-$50 as opposed to the games in Vegas. Obviously, you know, preseason versus regular season. But that Niners and Raiders game is going to be packed in favor of the Raiders, right? Because if you guys think about it, Niner fans don't care about preseason. They can go to any regular season game, as opposed to Raider fans. We don't have any games in the Bay Area this year, minus that one Niners preseason game. So if you guys are going to that game, let me know in the comments below. Let me know in the chat below. Let me know on Twitter or Instagram or whatever if you guys are planning to go to that game. I might end up attending that game, and maybe we can get together with some of you guys, and maybe we can do something. Right? I think that would be pretty cool. I've never really done anything where like I've gotten together with some of you guys out there. I feel like that would be pretty cool. So, but let's talk about the tackles just to get back into it. Brandon Parker, I'm excited to watch him preseason because he's gotten better and better and better. And the one thing Brandon Parker was really good at is his strength. And Brandon Parker and Alex Leatherwood are very similar players, right? They're both very strong football players. I do think Leatherwood's probably better in terms of like technique. Obviously, he's a better overall player, right? Brandon Parker's like 3 years into the league and he's still kind of struggling. And Leatherwood's about to just enter the league. But I do think Brandon Parker is going to end up being the backup. But what's interesting is Mike Mayock mentioned Jared Jones-Smith, right? The tackle that the Raiders got from Pitt. I watched his film. At the same time, we have Kamal Seymour as well on the roster, who I think we technically signed sometime last year. Seymour's a vet, right? If it came down to it, there is a chance the Raiders cut Parker. Like, he's about to be, I think this is actually his final season with the Raiders. Like, there's no guarantees that Brandon Parker's on this roster. Max Sermon says Brandon didn't entirely suck last year, which is 100% true. Last year, Brandon Parker had some good moments. Like there were times where he would punch someone, he would jump set someone, or even 45-degree set, and he would punch someone, and he has power behind that strike. At the same time, he is kind of slow-footed, I would say. That's my personal opinion. And I do think that is one of the reasons why Brandon Parker could end up being cut, right? Jeffrey is new to the channel. Huge shout out to you, Jeffrey. I appreciate you being here live with us. And that's just a good reminder. There's almost 200 of you guys. If you guys could just hit that thumbs up button, I would really, really, really appreciate it. It really does go a long way. Another thing I noticed with Brandon Parker is he seems better at left tackle than he does at right tackle. And I see a comment saying the same thing as well. I noticed this in the preseason, I think in his second year. I put it on Twitter that Brandon Parker at left tackle was, he was the second best offensive lineman after Colton Miller, versus at right tackle, he's like the worst offensive lineman. And people attacked me on Twitter, man. They're like, how can he line up on one side and be good, and on the other side he sucks? Like, you're just an idiot. But it is possible, right? People sometimes are left-handed or right-handed, and it could make a difference. For me personally, I would always have my right hand down with my right foot back, playing right guard. And I always felt more comfortable as opposed to playing on the left side. Putting my left hand down just didn't feel right for me. And I know these guys are professionals, but they're still humans at the end of the day, right? You might be better with one side, right? You might have done more reputation on one side. And I feel like that's Brandon Parker. I feel like Brandon Parker has done more reputation on one side. But at the same time, if Denzel Good's going to be a guard, a full-time starting guard, that means we have to rely on our backup more than we had in the past. Last season, we couldn't rely on Brandon Parker. When Trent Brown got hurt, Sam Young came in. He struggled. Brandon Parker replaced him. Brandon Parker was good at times, but then he would struggle as well. And eventually, the Raiders, I think in 3 or 4 games last year, ended up moving Good to right tackle. And that is when John Simpson came in. And I don't know how I feel about that, man. I feel like the Raiders would be better off maybe cutting Brandon Parker and seeing if either I think it's Kamel or Kummel Seymour, who I think is a vet, or he's played at least a couple years in the NFL. I feel like he might make a little bit more sense. Or Jared Jones-Smith. Like, if one of those guys can actually play, that might make more sense than Brandon Parker, because Alex Leatherwood and Colton Miller, it's not guaranteed that they play this whole entire season, right? Injuries do happen. People do miss 1 or 2 games. I do believe last year specifically, Colton Miller might have missed 1 game. I can't remember who started for Colton. I believe it was Brandon Parker, but I'm not 100% sure. Either way, let's move into the left guard spot, right? There is a chance that Richie Incognito is the guy at left guard, but he will be the guy, but there is a chance that he ends up getting hurt. He's gotten hurt the last 2 years, and if Richie Incognito gets hurt, his primary backup will be John Simpson, right? Like, without a doubt, John Simpson is going to come in. He did last year in his rookie year. There's no way he doesn't come into it for him in the second year. Now, here's the thing, right? And this is very, very, very important. John Simpson last year in his first few games looked awful. Like, it was sad watching John Simpson. Like, I felt bad because I felt like this guy's going to get Derek Carr killed. And for the most part, he kind of did, right? Like, Carr was getting pressured more. He was getting hit more. But at the same time, you do have to keep in mind that was John Simpson's first ever start, and it was his first time ever playing. He didn't have a preseason, and that makes a big difference. Now, he'll be going into year 2 this year. But at the same time, if you guys go back and watch the final 2 games of the season, John Simpson played in both of those games. He looked way better. He looked more comfortable. He just looked better, right? He looked faster. He looked quicker. I'm comfortable with John Simpson being our primary backup, a swing guard, right? That backup position. In case something were to happen to Richie, I would be perfectly fine with that. Now, I know some people would say, what about Nick Martin? What if we had Nick Martin as our backup guard? That is a possibility that we have him as our backup guard, right? Either way, it's going to be interesting to kind of see what happens with John Simpson and Nick Martin, because I do think that Nick Martin might not make the roster. Like, I like Jimmy Morrissey, and I could see Nick Martin getting the nod ahead of Jimmy Morrissey, because Under James, you're not 100% sure what he's going to do once he's a full-time starter. If James struggles, if he gives up 3, 4, 5 sacks in the first few weeks, Nick Martin's coming in, man. And Jimmy Morrissey is still a rookie. He's not going to be ready to take over for Under James. Nick Martin could potentially come in, right? Either way, it's going to be very interesting to kind of see what happens at that position. I think a lot of people are kind of forgetting about Lester Cotton Sr., and I want to discuss Lester, man, because I was very high on Lester. The year that Lester Cotton Sr. came out of Alabama, there were not a lot of good offensive linemen, and he was one of my favorite. There weren't a lot of good guards coming in, true guards that season. I believe like Dalton Risner was a tackle, but he's playing guard for the Broncos, but he's not a true guard, right? He was a tackle in college. When it comes to true guards, there were not a lot of guards coming in, and Lester Cotton was one of my favorite players. When I watched Lester Cotton, now first and foremost, when I watched Lester Cotton, Andre James stuck out right away, right? Like he looked very, very, very good. Either way, it's going to be interesting to kind of see what happens there. But I do think that Lester Cotton has a chance to make this roster, man. Like when I watched him play his rookie season, right, which was the last season that we actually had a preseason, that was 2 years ago. When I watched Lester play, he did a good job. Like flat out, he did a really good job. But the thing was it was against backups, and because we didn't have a preseason last year, he ended up getting cut. We didn't sign him to the practice squad, which concerned me. I felt like this guy's career is done, right? Most guys who don't get picked up on the active roster get cut and then don't hit the practice squad. Those guys are not going to be in the NFL. I'm glad to see Lester Cotton get another chance in the NFL, and we'll see what improvements he's made. This is going to be his third season, right? NFL season, even though he didn't play last year. This is going to be his third opportunity to really play. And if Lester is going to be an NFL guard, he has to prove it this year. If he doesn't prove it, chances are he'll never get another chance. But either way, I do think Lester Cotton, John Simpson, Richie Incognito, and Denzel Good will be the 4 guys. Like, I don't really see any other guards. Maybe Eric Magnusson. I don't know if that's how you say his name. I don't know if he's our center, if he's our guard, but he's been around for a while, man. So that'll be interesting. Left tackle, right tackle is going to be very interesting to kind of see where Richie, Good, and Simpson end up, right? I do have a feeling that Denzel Good's going to play left guard, and I do have a feeling that Richie's going to play right guard, man. You would want Richie Incognito to teach Alex Leatherwood. You'd want him to get this guy's confidence up, right? Either way, I'm pumped up, but I'm most excited between everybody to really watch Andre James, because if you guys have been on this channel for 2 years now, at least, you guys would know that when Andre James played his rookie season, in the preseason, I stated it. I said Andre James is going to be a starter one day. Here he is, man. Here he is. And the thing is, it's like, I try not to be biased. I try to be open-minded. You know, like when I watch Brandon Parker, I know generally kind of sucks, and I state that. I watched Lester Cotton. He really didn't have that good of a preseason. Like, he was okay. He was the second best lineman when it came to the backups. Andre James was much better, though. Like, it was clear that Andre James has a shot to be on this roster. And obviously, he hit the active roster. Lester Cotton hit the practice squad. And then Cotton got cut a year later. Andre James was still on the active roster. But the Raiders did re-sign Richie Incognito, right? Last offseason, the Raiders extended Rodney Hudson. So because the Raiders extended Rodney Hudson, I thought Andre James would end up getting cut, traded, or something else would happen to him. But the Raiders made the decision that they were going to move on from Hudson, and they were going to let Andre James take over. And I think that's the right decision, man. Rodney Hudson's getting up there in age. Andre James is young. You let him be, man. I think he's going to be a really good football player. Let's get into some of the comments, man. I really want to know what you guys have thoughts on. Stick with the offensive line, because in just a couple minutes we'll switch over to the defensive line and we'll talk about that as well. Polo Thomas said he's aggressive. From what little bit I saw, I think he fits with Leatherwood. I'm not 100% sure exactly what you're talking about, but I agree with you, man. I agree with you, because that's probably something I would say, man. There was a Chiefs fan here. I put him on a temporary timeout. Hopefully he left. If he comes back, we'll put him on another timeout. I can't block people from the platform that I use, which is StreamYard. but we can put him in, timeout multiple times. Mally Moss said Leatherwood played some right tackle too at Bama. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure he probably did. He played right guard from what I remember, and then at the same time he played left tackle. But I wouldn't be surprised if he played right tackle. You know what's very interesting that a lot of people don't talk about is it's very interesting in my opinion. Alex Leatherwood did play right guard, but then in 2019 they moved him to left tackle, and on the right side, right tackle was Jedrick Wills. Typically, wouldn't you put your best offensive lineman at left tackle? Why is Jedrick Wills at right tackle and Leatherwood was at left tackle? And then more interesting, in my opinion, is I put something out on Twitter and on Instagram. Actually, I posted on Instagram. Someone sent it to me on Twitter. I retweeted it on Twitter. Basically, it was Mel Kiper Jr. giving him his analysis of Jedrick Wills, who was the 10th overall pick in the 2019 draft. Mel Kiper said that he thinks Alex Leatherwood is a better football player than Jedrick Wills. And Jedrick Wills, and this was in 2019, right, before the draft, actually before the 2020 draft. Jedrick Wills came out and was the 10th overall pick. And Mel Kiper thought Leatherwood was better, man, which is very interesting. So I don't know what Mel Kiper's, I don't know how his thoughts or opinions changed on that. But that was interesting. Polo Thomas said Lester Cotton, my bad on that. Thank you. So you're saying he's aggressive. That's Lester Cotton. And yeah, man, I agree. You know what's interesting is Lester Cotton and Leatherwood played on the same offensive line. Lester Cotton was a left guard, and Leatherwood was the right guard at that time. They played together on the same offensive line, and that's going to be interesting to kind of see, man. I do think the Raiders would be wise to let Leatherwood play the whole entire game, or at least 2 to 3 quarters. When the backups when the backups start coming in, right? When Colton Miller comes out, Derek Carr comes out, you leave Leatherwood in there at right tackle and you let him play because he needs to get used to the game speed quickly. You get 3 games. So Alex Leatherwood has to adjust to the game speed. Same with Andre James. I want to see Andre have a little bit more of that extended play time. Denzel Good, Richie Incognito, especially Richie Incognito, and Cole Miller all need to come off the field. You let those guys stay in there. You put Brandon Parker in. You put John Simpson in. Andre James stays in, and then right guard. Maybe it's Lester Cotton at right guard with Alex Leatherwood at right tackle. I'm excited, man. I cannot wait until the freaking preseason comes along. I'm telling you guys right now, as soon as preseason game happens, literally as soon as it happens, I will go live, and maybe we will go through it and we'll watch the game live together. We'll look at every single one of these guys together. We'll look at left tackle to right tackle. We'll watch Alex Leatherwood. We'll watch Andre James. And the crappy part is we're not going to have the all 22 film. We'll only end up having the broadcast angle, but that's okay. We'll still be able to kind of get a feel for these guys. It'll be very interesting to kind of see what happens there. I'm pumped, man. I cannot express to you guys how pumped up I am. Let's get into a couple more comments, and then we'll switch over to the defensive side. My opinion says, I like our O-line, except let's slam Morrissey in at center instead. So are you saying we should replace Andre James with Jimmy Morrissey, his rookie season? That'll be very interesting. But I do think that 100%, I do think that would be a mistake, especially in the first year. Jimmy Morrissey needs to get stronger. He isn't there when it comes to strength. Now, he's going to be a great player when it comes to things like zone runs, right? If he has to move to the right, to the left, he's going to be a good football player, in my opinion. But I don't think he's there yet, right? I would have to wait it out and just kind of see. Someone said he played 12 snaps at right tackle. That's Alex Leatherwood. So I don't remember seeing any snaps of him at right tackle, but I'm sure he did definitely play that. George said Morrissey has to get bigger. He does, man. If he doesn't get bigger, he won't be an NFL player, but he has to get bigger. Andre James played for UCLA, which is true. He was a tackle at UCLA. Either way, I'm pumped up. Dirty Styles, huge shout out to you, my man. I really appreciate the $5 super chat. If you guys have questions and I don't answer your questions, super chats, I will always answer, especially it's like one super chat every like 15 minutes. I will definitely answer it. Dirty Style said, "You're the best. I can't stay, but I'll review this later." I really appreciate it. If you don't see when I brought this up and you do watch this later, again, I really appreciate you. I see all your comments. I appreciate that you're a member to the channel. If you guys aren't a member to the channel, join to get access to a bunch of members only content, right? Like film studies, one play highlight type of things where I just kind of give my thoughts and opinions on things. Either way, man, I'm excited. I'm going to hit this one question really quickly and then switch over to the defensive side. How many carries can you see Drake getting a game? Carries maybe like 7 max, but I think he'll get more touches and he'll get more snaps. Maybe he'll be pass protecting. Maybe he'll be running routes. I think he'll have like maybe 20 snaps a game in total, or around 20. Josh will probably get like 35 snaps, 55 snaps in total, 50 to 60 snaps in total between those two guys. And I think that's majority of the snaps for our running backs. I don't think Jalen Richard makes the roster, honestly. I think the Raiders bringing in the 2 young undrafted running backs they did, I feel like that's maybe to replace Jalen Richard. Now, I never underestimate Jalen Richard. He's been on the roster for a reason. He's stuck around for a reason. Before we switch over to the defensive line and really get into this, hit that thumbs up button, man. It really does appreciate it, and I really do appreciate every single one of you guys that is here live with me right now. It is 6:49. I know the Lakers and Warriors game is about to start, and I know that's a big one for us Raider fans because I'd say like a third of us are Warriors fans here in the San Francisco Bay Area, up going north as well. And then at the same time, I know Raider Nation is huge in LA. I know there's a lot of Laker fans down there. So the game starts in 11 minutes. I'll be excited to check that game out. I'm not a fan of either, if you guys are curious. I grew up in the Sacramento area, which kind of sucks because I chose the Sacramento Kings. So I'm both a Kings and Raiders fan, and I haven't seen our team win, man. But this is the year, man. I'm positive the Raiders are winning a Super Bowl this year. Let's get into the defensive line. One of the things a lot of people have asked me about the defensive line specifically is who's going to start? Is it Cleveland? Is it Max? Is it Yannick Ngakoue? Here's the thing, right? And I feel like people kind of don't realize this about the system, right? Gus Bradley is not a true 4-3 defense, and he's not a true 3-4 defense either. Gus Bradley runs this over defense where basically he's going to have a strong side linebacker over a tight end. So you're going to get 5 defensive ends. Or what he'll do is he'll shift over Yannick Ngakoue to the weak side. He'll put him up in a 2-point stance. And then maybe Cleveland's on the inside of him, lined up over a tackle. You have 2 defensive tackles in. And then you have Max Crosby all the way to the other side of the tackle, right? So basically you get 5 defensive linemen in there. And what ends up happening is that's going to be our base defense. That's going to be our first and second down defense. We'll be bringing 5 guys a ton. We'll have Yannick Ngakoue dropping back a ton to cover. Not a ton, but he'll definitely be dropping back. And then I think what happens on like second and long, right? Like let's say 2nd and 10. What's going to end up happening is one of those guys will come out. So rather that's Cleveland, Max, or Yannick Ngakoue. One of those guys will come out. I don't think it's going to be Ngakoue. I think Ngakoue is going to play 3 downs. I don't think he's coming off the field much. I think it's going to be a mixture of Cleveland and Max coming off the field on like 2nd and 10. Now, if it's like 2nd and 3, then all those guys stay in. I think Max Crosby lines up on one defensive end spot, and Yannick Ngakoue lines up the opposite side of him. But obviously, Ngakoue will be shading the outside of the tackle, or maybe it's a tight end. I think Gus Bradley's going to shift that around, just depending on the situation and the team. And then Cleveland Farrell will be on the inside of Ngakoue. And again, that's if it's like a run down, right? Even like 3rd and 1, like we're going to have those 5 guys in. Now, if it's 2nd and 10, I do think that, Cleveland or Max come out. As far as the defensive tackles specifically, I believe Jonathan Hankins is going to play a ton. I think Quentin Jefferson is going to play every single down. I think Quentin Jefferson is going to be the one guy that's primarily going to play all 3 downs. David Irving, Solomon Thomas, I think will also rotate in and out. Kendall Vickers, I think, is also going to play a lot. So last year, if you guys remember, we had like 4 or 5 defensive tackles specifically that shifted in and out. They rotated in and out. I think that's going to happen again this year. Like, I would not be surprised if that happens again, right? Um, if there's one defensive lineman that I'm really high on, that's Kendall Vickers. So just remember that I said it first. That way, if it's wrong, you guys can come blame me as well. But I really do think that Kendall Vickers is going to have a big impact. I think last year he had 2 sacks, maybe more. People said Maurice Hurst was the most, he was the defensive lineman that made the most out of his opportunities, and that wasn't true. Pro Football Focus had Kendall Vickers getting more pressure per snap than they had Mo Hurst getting. So Kendall Vickers was technically our best interior defensive lineman last year. I think Kendall Vickers is going to play a ton this year, man. I really do think that there's a chance that Solomon Thomas ends up getting cut because a lot of people like Kendall Vickers. A lot of people like the undrafted free agent from West Virginia, Darius Stills. At the same time, we have Malcolm Kuntz, right? Kuntz is going to play a lot too. So our D-line this year, in my opinion, is deeper than they've ever been. Right? That's my personal opinion. I really do feel like this defensive line is super deep. James, I think it's Jaime, and I apologize if it's James. I think it's Jaime. You said Vickers was put on notice in the KC game. He was, man. He dominated, like absolutely dominated. It looks good, man. If you guys have not watched Kendall Vickers against Kansas City, if you guys have access to the All-22 film, which you can watch via the NFL Game Pass, if you guys have not, go watch Vickers. Watch the coaches film and watch Vickers on the plays he plays. The guy was getting after it, man. He was really, really, really getting after it. I would not be surprised if he ends up starting. Like, I believe Kendall Vickers, Quentin Jefferson, of course, and Jonathan Hankins, right? Those 3 guys. And I say 3 guys, and I say all starting because first down and second down are 2 different downs, right? First down and third down specifically, I guess, are 2 different downs. And then second and 3 is different than second and 10, right? You have a different guy in there depending on the down and distance. So that makes a big difference. And I do really believe that Kendall Vickers really, really, really has a shot to have a good NFL career, man. He's still young, too. I think he's just going into his 3rd season and really just 2nd season when actually playing. I don't think he played it his rookie year. So this is really, he's really just basically where Jonathan Abram is in his development, right? They're both basically going into their 2nd year. Will David Irving get playing time from AG? Thank you for the comment. I really do appreciate it. That's an interesting comment because David Irving, I think he had like 7-8 sacks in one season, a couple seasons ago with the Cowboys. I don't know how he did that because when I watch him, he just looks too slow, right? And I do think because of that specific reason, he's not fast. I don't know how much playing time he gets. Like, between him and Solomon Thomas, I think Solomon Thomas has the higher ceiling, right? Absolutely. But even though Solomon Thomas has the higher ceiling, right now David Irving's the better player, and Solomon Thomas is down here. Will that stick? Is that what's going to end up happening? I think chances are yes. I don't think Solomon Thomas is really going to turn it around. There's one thing that a defensive lineman has to be able to do for him to be a good football player, and that's he has to use his hands. He has to be able to slap people, rip through people, swim over people. He has to be able to do a bunch of different things. He has to know how to use his hands. And in my opinion, Solomon Thomas has never learned it. He has never learned to use his hands. He was drafted and really he only got into the NFL, in my opinion. I know Ray the Tape says this all the time, is because of his genetics. Without that, man, this guy doesn't make the NFL. And there's a number of different ways to make the NFL, right? You can just be genetically gifted and better than everybody, right? Jadeveon Clowney's another guy that kind of comes in mind. At the same time, you can be a guy like Khalil Mack, who is more gifted. He has more pass rushing traits. He knows how to win at the point of attack. That is traits. That's using your hands. And Solomon Thomas is the complete opposite. Jaime said, and I'm glad I got your name right. Jaime says Vickers is a starter. I think so, man. I really think so. In your guys' opinion, and let me know in the comments below, who are the 3 defensive tackles that play the absolute most? Let me know right now in the comments below. I want to know what the general thought process is out there. And before we move on, smash that thumbs up button, man. It really does help me a ton. This video, unfortunately, I don't know why YouTube does this. It's already been demonetized, right? So I don't know why YouTube does this. So basically any ads or anything you guys see, which you guys probably won't see, doesn't go to me, man. And I hate, why. I don't know why YouTube does this, but I do appreciate the super chats because that 70% of super chats come directly and support the channel. So huge shout out to all of you guys. I appreciate all of you guys watching. There's over 240 people. Again, I mentioned this earlier, but with the Lakers game coming up, I'm surprised that there's still 240 of you guys. And I kind of started this a little bit late. Just to kind of clarify, because I know a lot of people have been asking me how I'm planning to kind of break my shows up. I will try every Sunday to have a guest on, and then every Wednesday I will talk about different topics. This video specifically was offensive linemen and defensive linemen, and just kind of get really deep into it. On Sunday, I'll reach out to some people and see if someone has some time to maybe come onto the channel. Those are the 2 days I'll be going live primarily. Last Friday I made a video with my brother. That was because I was in the area. I don't plan to go live. I don't plan to make videos with my brother every Friday. So just to clarify that, Paul, huge shout out to you, man. You left a $5 super chat. Tanner Muse is going to get cut if this year's draft picks play well in camp. Wasted pick. And you also said everyone says Muse is a special teams guy, but I think that is a narrative to mask a bad pick. I was literally just about to say that, man. And you actually just make a really good point. Like flat out, you make a real good point because, Tanner Muse was a 3rd round pick. It looks wasted, man. It really does look wasted. Now, I don't want to 100% say it's a wasted pick without 100% allowing him to at least play a little bit. But at the same time, I do agree with you, man. I do think the Raiders are kind of saying that Tanner Muse is going to be a special teams player. He's going to be that ace. He's going to be that one guy that's going to do all the things that you need from a special teams guy. I feel like they're saying that to mask it, right? You're right. I do think that they kind of feel like that, or they're kind of saying that because the news was in camp last year that this guy is a bad football player, right? Like I think all the beat writers that were there kind of saw him play and saw him getting picked on in team drills and all that stuff. People were saying he was a very bad football player. And the fact that he ended up on IR for the whole entire season, people are saying wasn't necessarily just for the sole reason that he had a foot injury. Some people were saying it's because the Raiders didn't want to allow him to hit the field. There was a chance he could have just gotten cut last year and then ended up on the practice squad, which would have sucked for the Raiders, right? But I don't want to say it's a wasted pick yet. But yeah, man, it is going to be interesting to kind of see what he does. I really do hope it works out. For the longest time, the Patriots had this one guy. I think his name was Rashawn. It wasn't Rashawn Slater because Rashawn Slater just came out. He's a tackle. But I think his last name was Slater or Slayton or something like that. And he is known as like the best special teams player like in the last 15 years. I'm sure someone can probably clarify exactly what his name was. But he's a special teams ace, and he makes play after play after play after play. And he's a good football player, and Paul confirmed it is Slater. If Tanner Muse can be that, I'm fine with it. I still think a 3rd round pick is a little high for a guy who just plays special teams. But I do think that Tanner Muse has a small shot to actually be a decent football player. Obviously, we'll end up seeing how that works out. I'm looking at the comments of what you guys think about the defensive line. A lot of people are saying Jefferson and Thomas, Irving, Hankins, Jefferson. Do you guys think that Irving makes the roster? Like, there's no guarantees, right? Right now, just looking at the defensive line, look at these guys that the Raiders have. We have Jonathan Hankins, Quentin Jefferson, David Irving, Solomon Thomas, Kendall Vickers, Darius Fallon, Darius Stales, and Niles Scott. Now, I don't know who the hell Niles Scott is, so he's probably going to get cut. But we have 8 defensive linemen right now, man. That's a lot. Not defensive linemen, 8 defensive tackles. That's a shit ton of defensive tackles. Now, here's the one thing that I do like about where our roster's at. Last year, we had Jonathan Hankins playing 1st, 2nd, and 3rd down, and that's not ideal. You don't want one guy that plays on all 3 downs. You want Jonathan Hankins to play 1st and 10, 2nd and 2, 3rd and 1. And then when it's the long yardage, right, when it's 2nd and 10, 3rd and 12, that's when you want Hankins off the field. That's when you want a guy like Kendall Vickers in there. At the same time, when it's 1st and 10, 2nd and 1, 3rd and 1, You don't want Kendall Vickers on the field, right? He's not as good of a run stopper as someone like Jonathan Hankins. At the same time, Quentin Jefferson's like a mixture of Jonathan Hankins and Kendall Vickers, and maybe he's not as good of a pass rusher as Vickers, but Quentin Jefferson can get after it. I think he's going to be a real difference maker for the Raiders. And I think we only signed him on a 1-year contract, which is kind of disappointing because if he has a good year, he's going to basically do what Nelson Aguilar did with the Raiders. That's leave and go sign somewhere else for a big contract. Andrew left a $5 super chat without a comment. Huge shout out to you, Andrew. I really do appreciate it. Paul said Jackie Slater's son, and it's Matt Slater. Thank you, Michael, for confirming that. Todd Clemens, who's a member of this channel, huge shout out to you, Todd. I really appreciate you. You said too early to judge Muse. He's never hit the field, and that's it, man. That's basically all I have to say about Tanner Muse. Until he hits the field, you can't really judge him, right? Now let's talk a little bit about the defensive ends because Israel is saying let's cut Nassib. Is Nassib on the roster? Like, is he going to be a player on this roster? Now, here's the thing, right? In our defense, I think Cleveland Farrell, Max Crosby, and Carl Nassib played the same position. Yannick Ngakoue doesn't play the same position that those three guys play. Malcolm Kuntz, on the other hand, plays the same position Yannick Ngakoue plays, right? Those are different positions, and I know technically they're all defensive ends, but Yannick Ngakoue and Malcolm Kuntz are Leos. All right, that's a different. They're asked to do something different. They're asked to get upfield, get after the quarterback, strip the quarterback, right? Get the forced fumbles or whatever. That's what those two guys are going to be asked to do, and that's different than Cleveland Farrell, Max Crosby, and of course Carl Nassib. Here's the thing: I think Carl Nassib, Cleveland Farrell, and Max Crosby are obviously Crosby and Farrell are going to be on the roster, but I don't think Carl Nassib is going anywhere, man. I know some people have talked about Carl Nassib and the fact that the Raiders should potentially cut him. I know some people have said he's a trash player. He wasn't that bad last year, right? Plus, you got to consider it's Paul Gunther. Shout out to you, McLovin. I really appreciate it. Hey, Sanjit, it's been a while. Shout out to you, man. I really appreciate you. At the same time, low-key, you're saying you can't cut Carl Nassib, which is true. Right now, we have him locked under contract. There's dead money involved. Cut him, trade him. His cap is his cap. You can't get out of that. At the same time, do the Raiders really need cap? If the Raiders really feel like, hey, we don't want him on the roster, you can cut him, and that saves the roster spot. So you only cut Nassib if you feel that another player is better than him. But ultimately, I do think there's 5 defensive ends that make this roster, right? And I think Nassib's one of them. I believe it's going to be Nassib, Cleveland, Kuntz, Ngakoue, and Max Crosby. I think those 5 guys all make the roster, and those guys are all going to play a ton. I think Kuntz will rotate in and out for Yannick Ngakoue. At the same time, I think Nassib will rotate in and out for Farrell or Crosby. Plus, if one of those guys gets hurt, you need a guy that can come in, right? So it's going to be interesting to kind of see what happens there. We do have a Jerry Green. I don't know who the hell that is. As a backup defensive end, we have Matt Dickerson, who I think is the undrafted free agent that the Raiders just picked up. Or actually, no, he's not. He's a 4th-year player. He played, I don't know where he played actually, but he was on the Raiders, I guess. I don't think he's going to make the roster, man. Matt Dickerson, I don't see him being on the roster. Edward makes a good point. You said Nassib was hurt. He tried to play through it, is what I heard. I heard the same thing too. Carl Nassib was hurt last year, and E.C. Everett says Vickers is a defensive end. He played defensive tackle for the Raiders last year. He could theoretically play defensive end, but I think he might be too big to play defensive end. I think his best fit would be to let him pass rush and get after the quarterback. He's 295. Technically, he could play defensive end. Again, the Raiders do play a 4-3, right? But their guys, it kind of looks more like a 3-4, right? Based off of just the way Gus Bradley runs his defense. We're going to go 100% to stop, like 1,000% to stop the run. That means we're going to have 5 defensive linemen in there at all times, right? Yannick Ngakoue, in my opinion, is a defensive lineman. But it's going to be very interesting, man. I'm very pumped up to kind of see what happens. Now, I've been talking about how pumped up I am when it comes to like the offensive line. and how I'll be watching the preseason game over and over and over again just to study the offensive line. I'll be doing the same thing with the defensive line, man. Malcolm Koonce, I'm so pumped up to watch this guy. I cannot wait until the preseason game comes around. We're about 2.5-ish months away. It's going to be interesting, man. I'm very fired up for this. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, man. Hit that thumbs up for me. It really does appreciate it. I really just wanted to talk about the offensive line and the defensive line. If you guys have any questions or comments, let me know in the chat, or make sure to leave a comment. I really appreciate every single one of you guys. I have a really good video coming for you guys tomorrow, so make sure to tune in to the channel tomorrow as well. I hope you guys all have a great day. Enjoy the Lakers-Warriors game if you guys are going to watch that, and I'll see you guys next time with another video.